All right. I think I'll start for everyone just to honor your time tonight. So, first of all, welcome and thank you for coming to this town hall. It's been a while one. And what I wanted to do tonight was give you a short presentation. There is going to be a video involved. And this is just really an opportunity for me to start by explaining about some of the things that we have been trying to do at the federal level in order to make life a little bit more affordable for a lot of folks, not only in this riding, but right across Canada. Once that is complete, I want to open it up to the floor. So it'll be a chance for you to ask questions, offer comments, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on this subject. It can be on anything you want. This is not only an opportunity, it's an AMA, ask me anything. It's really an opportunity so that you can be informed of some of the work that I've been doing along with my colleagues, but also it's an opportunity so that when I go back to Ottawa next week, I can be cognizant of some of your major concerns, and maybe you can identify some areas where federal policies aren't working so well and where you'd like to see some improvement. So with that, let's start on to the first page. So a lot of the questions I've gotten over the last number of months have to do with the CASA, the Confidence and Supply Agreement. And essentially when we had last year's federal election, the Liberals had the opportunity to form government first because they won the most seats. And I am a firm believer in you play the hand that you were dealt. We were dealt another minority parliament. It was essentially unchanged from the results that we saw in 2019. And this has been a pretty unstable year, to say the least, 2022. So what we did is we started sitting down with the Liberals and looking at areas where we could work together. And we did identify some common themes. I think healthcare is probably the biggest one. And we have long prided ourselves as a party, as New Democrats, of fighting for healthcare, making sure that we have a better system that's more responsive to the many needs that are out there, and many needs that I'm sure many of you in this room are personally can relate to. So what we did is we got basically the Liberals to acquiesce to some of our long-standing demands, and that's why you're now starting to see action on a federal dental care plan. That's why you're starting to see action on rental assistance for people who are struggling. And that's why you're seeing action as recently as last week on the doubling of the GST credit. Are all of these measures by themselves or together enough for some people? No, there's still a lot of people struggling. We know inflation is a huge issue. We know that it is rising faster than the rate people are being paid. But we also know that many companies out there are making out like bandits right now. If you look at the grocery sector, if you look at oil and gas companies, their profits, especially compared to 2019 and before, are at record levels. And I think that we need to really tackle this issue, the concept of greedflation, whereby many companies are using this inflationary period to really pad their bottom line and are making a lot of us suffer as a result. So we'll go to the next slide. So these are some of the areas where our agreement with the Liberals covers. Number one, as I said, was healthcare. We are tackling things like affordability, our democratic system. We didn't get them to agree to everything that we wanted, but through this agreement, we're going to see some significant changes, like adding 2 more days of voting so that you don't have to get all of your votes done on a single day. We want to see that spread out over 3 days. Action on different tax initiatives and so on. One thing I will say is that the agreement that we have, the measures that the Liberals have agreed to, all have certain timelines attached to them. So we have an oversight committee. It's composed of 3 of my colleagues who are making sure that the agreement is being met by the timelines. We have regular meetings between the government House Leader and our House Leader, and the leaders as well, Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, meet 4 times a year. And it's to ensure that the terms of this agreement are being met and are going according to schedule. So just to assure everyone that this was not a blank check, it is being followed up on regularly. The progress is being measured. And I can say that, to the government's credit, a lot of their ministers who are responsible for these key files are in fact working very closely with my colleagues who are critics in these areas. And I can tell you from my two roles in agriculture and in public safety, I have certainly seen a renewed relationship with the ministers that I'm responsible for. They do take the time to reach out and try and get some of my feedback on where we'd like to see our priorities move. So you can see some of the things. This is just a little bit more detail on the things that we are working towards. I think dental care is probably the flagship program. I don't know about many of you, but over the years that I've been an MP and even before that, I have met a lot of people who simply cannot afford to go to the dentist. And that's the same from coast to coast to coast. We have millions of Canadians who skip going to the dentist every single year because of the cost. And often many of those people are suffering in silence. They are unable to go to the dentist. And just something as simple as a regular checkup can detect some of those early onset problems. And if you don't treat them early, they become worse. And they end up forcing people to go to Canada's emergency rooms, which costs our healthcare system more. So this is really about strengthening primary care, preventative health care, making sure that we identify those problems before they become real problems. And the way this is going to work is that this year we are having the interim payments roll out to families who have children under the age of 12. Next year it's going to expand to seniors, to persons with disabilities, and to children who are under the age of 18. And after that, we're going to get to a full program by the year 2025. So this is a really big thing. We also have commitments to put in place a long-term care act so that we have national standards. We all know the horror show that existed during the pandemic in Canada's long-term care homes. You need only talk to members of the Canadian Armed Forces who had to be sent in because of the conditions that were there. And also to make sure that we address pharmacare. Pharmacare also a long-standing issue. I've met with many constituents who've had to skip out on their prescriptions, cut their pills in half, again because of the cost. And so we truly believe in having a universal public healthcare system. And in a country that is wealthy as ours, we should be working our utmost to make sure that we're addressing these gaps, addressing people's healthcare concerns, and ensuring that the system is able to support their needs. The other items on reconciliation, the tax initiatives. I know here in the Cowichan Valley, we are very lucky to live in an area that is represented by so many First Nations. And I should acknowledge too that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Cowichan people. But if you look at like the Nuu-chulnith on the west coast, and I think a lot of them, when I've spoken to members of their communities, to chiefs and council, they really want to proceed past reconciliation to what I would call reconciliation, like a commitment to actually act upon the many promises that have been made by successive governments. We'll go to the next slide. So this is the dental benefit, just going over a little bit of the details. So in my ideal world, we would have had a universal system, but again, I'm not in government, the Liberals are. This is what they would agree to. And so essentially for families that are earning less than $70,000 a year, there will be no cost. I think the median income in Cowichan, Malahat, Langford is about $36,000 to $40,000 a year. So for a lot of families, this is going to be a huge help to them. And it's really going to help their kids get the care that they deserve. There's a sliding scale as you get up to $90,000 of income, and past that, it would be under the system that we have. We know that many Canadians are lucky enough to have these kind of benefits under their work plans. Some fall under provincial programs, but we want to make sure that we are addressing the gaps for those people who are currently unable to afford it out of pocket. The GST rebate increase, there's been a lot of conversations about, what are some of the most effective ways that we can put money back into Canadians' pockets, especially at this time when we see these catastrophic price increases, especially in the cost of groceries and the cost of fuel. The GST credit is probably the best mechanism for that because it directly targets low-income Canadians. For people who have kept their taxes up to date, this money appeared in their bank accounts last Friday, and it was a great vehicle for us to get money directly into people's pockets. I know it's not a lot, but again, we're trying to find different avenues to help people, and I think if you look at the GST rebate, the rental benefit that we've announced, the dental benefit, for a family that is struggling on the margins, that has young children, if you add all of those benefits together, I believe it is going to make a significant difference. Can we do more? Absolutely, but it's a start, and I'm proud that we've been able to leverage our small position in Parliament to get these wins for people. More details just on the Canada housing benefits. So, you know, for renters who are struggling with that income, like as a family, for $35,000. For individuals, if you're under $20,000, again, this is going to be a benefit that will help you get by for some of those unexpected costs. Is it an answer to our overall housing problem? No, absolutely. I think Canada has suffered for years because of the financialization of our housing market and the costs of getting a new home, rental availability. These are all major issues which have not been addressed by the market. And what we really need to see in this country is strong investment in non-market housing options to really address those many challenges that Canadians are facing. I want to show you just a quick video. It's about 6 minutes long. And this is just to illustrate how long New Democrats have been fighting for dental care. Like, this is not just something that we drew on the back of a napkin this March and presented to the Liberals. We have been fighting for this for years. You know, we pride ourselves on being the party of healthcare. It was Tommy Douglas that fought for this system to bring it in federally. Some of the biggest gaps have always been pharmaceuticals and dental coverage. And I just wanted to give you a taste of like how over the years we have continuously raised this issue in the House of Commons, and to finally come to a point where we have got the government of the day agreeing to it, I think is a pretty significant step. And I'm excited to see where it's going to lead in the future. So this is just a quick video of some of the interjections we've had with various members of Parliament over the years.
We also need to offer real dignity for seniors and provide free dental care and drug coverage, long-term care, so we can free up the hospital.
This bill would provide free prescription and dental care for seniors and children under the age of 12. Many seniors and young families are unable to afford even basic dental checkups. Mr. Speaker, this is an important first step towards a universal prescription and dental care system for every Canadian, part of the original plan for universal medical care envisioned by Tommy Douglas and the New Democratic Party.
Or he might, you know, we might want to fulfill his dream of a dental care program so that every person in this country, every child, every senior, everyone had access to good quality dental care.
People can access it. We must implement public insurance where the private sector is increasingly failing, like pharmacare, like dental care. And we must also put an end to the housing crisis and implement a national housing strategy that leaves no one behind.
It's not liberal spin, it's not conservative spin. It's really about the impacts on real people. Having no pharmacare in this country hurts real people. Having no access to dental care hurts real people. Having no access to housing. It's all well and good, I think, for Liberals to spin and say, well, eventually we'll get around to it. In 3 years, as the Parliamentary Secretary said, we'll do something about it. People are suffering now. Canadian families are suffering now. And the government needs to act now.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that wasn't really an answer to the question. You know, I mean, it was over 20 years ago that the Liberals first promised pharmacare. They've had 3 majority governments since then, and their common criticism of the NDP is that we're in too big a hurry. Yeah, we're in a hurry. We think it shouldn't have taken 20 years for Canadians to get affordable access. And we're not prepared to apologize for that in the least, Mr. Speaker. And we also know, because the science tells us that preventative access to things like dental care and eye care are less expensive in the long term and improve quality of life. So will they commit today to moving forward on that?
Honourable Minister of Health.
They're handing over
over $6 billion in giving the biggest benefits to folks who are already making between $100,000 and $200,000 a year. And while we support the idea of giving a break to those who earn the least, if we target the Liberals' proposed changes to those making less than $90,000 a year, we can give those who need the help the most free and full dental care immediately.
Now, Liberals are taking from the poor and giving to the rich. They've got Robin Hood backwards, Mr. Speaker. Now, today the PBO released a report on the Liberals' $6.9 billion tax plan. And guess who benefits most? The wealthiest 10%. That's why we put together a better plan that also gives dental care to 4.5 million Canadians.
Instead of giving away billions to the wealthiest, will the Liberals work with us to set up a dental care system for those who need it?
I've been listening to Liberals speak today, and the message seems to be hurry up and wait. The fact is, right now, we have a lot of Canadians who are suffering from poor oral health, who need this care right now, and yet the Liberals, don't want to go all the way because they believe half measures are appropriate. This is a party that has taken 23 years to get to pharmacare and now wants to delay dental care when it's evidence that so many Canadians need. And Madam Speaker, I'm just hoping my colleague can just illustrate how great this need is and what the resultant savings will be to some of the lowest income Canadians out there. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, every year 6 million Canadians can't visit the dentist when they need it because of the cost. And women are less likely to have access to dental care because they are often in part-time or precarious employment with no benefits. A lack of childcare during the pandemic has meant that women who had benefits lost them when they had to leave their jobs to stay home with the kids. And many single moms were already struggling to afford dental visits for themselves and their children.
Madam Speaker, my office is receiving hundreds of messages every day on dental care. One senior said, I live on a tight budget. In January of this year, I needed serious dental surgery. To afford the $1,800, she's living frugally, cutting her own hair, turning down her heat, walking rather than driving. Marissa needs over $4,000 worth of dental work, but she gets only $1,000 for dental every 2 years on disability, and she is in extreme pain.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's absolutely huge. You know, I put a post on my Facebook page, and it was just filled with comments from constituents about the costs that they personally had to bear for fixing their teeth. And I would really, I think he'll join me in recognizing our colleague from St. John's East who's put forward this motion. Unfortunately, the Liberals have indicated they won't support it. Even though the motion is non-binding, the Liberals still can't bring themselves to supporting the at least the intent or recognize the importance of dental care. And I think it's just inconceivable that our healthcare coverage ends at our tonsils when, poor oral health has been linked to so many serious medical conditions. So yes, I'm proud to be a member of a party that will fight tooth and nail for both dental care and pharmacy.
Back into people. And people have asked, well, what could we do? There's a lot that we can do. We can invest in programs that will make life more affordable for people. We can invest in dealing with the costs that people deal with on a regular basis, costs like the cost of medication. Why not bring in a national pharmacare plan to help families save thousands of dollars on their medication? We are proposing in putting in place a program to help people with dental care. We know that many families are struggling with the cost of living and go without having dentist visits. Kids are going without dentist visits. We can bring in social programs, universal social programs that will help people out. We could send direct payments out to families like we did in the pandemic. We can support those families that need help the most. We need to act. And what we're proposing is a clear path to action. Imposing a tax on companies that are making excess profits and reinvesting that back into people. New Democrats will always be on the side of people. And we believe very strongly that our role is to stop companies from exploiting people, that the government's role is to stand up and provide real help when people need it most. And that's exactly what our motion, our plan is, and that's exactly what we'll continue to do. Thank you.
I also wanted to let everyone know that we were hoping to have representatives from Service Canada here tonight, but what they did do is presented us with some of the services. I know you're probably all very familiar with the services you can get at this place, but I also wanted to let you know that a large part of what my constituency office is here for is for when you're running into problems with these types of services. And I know of late many people have struggled getting their passports on time, but we also have a lot of seniors who have problems with missed payments from their Canada Pension Plan, their old age security, their GIS, tax problems. Tax season is coming up in the next several months. So I just want to let you know that if you are not getting an adequate level of service from this agency, from the CRA, could be Fisheries and Oceans Canada, you could be waiting for your firearms license to come through. If you are not getting the type of standard service that you expect, my constituency office is here to serve you in that regard. So I just want to let you know that that service is there. And then this just kind of gives a timeline of how busy this year has been with regards to legislative initiatives. I was pleased earlier this year to reintroduce my bill on soil conservation. We had some government legislation on the old age security, and also like Bill C30, that was the bill to increase the GST credit. So it was nice to see actually Bill C30 with the GST credit. That was actually supported unanimously in the House of Commons. So it was nice to see a rare moment where Liberals, Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, NDP, and Greens all came together and understood this was a really important issue to move ahead with. And I just wanted to end by introducing you to the team. So we've got Leanne Finlayson, she's there at the back. Robert's here at the front, and Ashley is the other person in my office. And when I'm in Ottawa, these three fine people are there staffing the office and are there to help. I also want to just end because I know one of the biggest questions that come with any big program that's announced like this is how are you going to pay for it? Well, I would just ask you to look at how we're already paying for the problem. Look at the healthcare costs of not treating this issue adequately. And I really think that, yes, the price tag initially might be quite high, but we live in such a wealthy country. I mean, if you look at Canada's earnings, the GDP that we have, the number of wealthy people we have, the successful companies that we have here, but that is juxtaposed with so many people who cannot go and get their teeth looked at because of the cost. That is juxtaposed by people who are out on the street or close to losing their home. And I think that's a fundamental question of fairness that we need to address in this country. So one of the things that we have proposed is that, for corporations that have been making out very well over the last couple of years and have benefited from these times, these inflationary times, from some of the supply chain woes that we've seen, we've proposed that there should be an excess profits tax on them. And there is precedent. In World War II, Canada had an excess profits tax on some companies that were benefiting from the war effort. And I believe that's something that we should look at. We've also proposed a wealth tax on fortunes of over $10 million. And it's really about trying to level the playing field so that we can afford to raise people up from absolute dire poverty. So I think the next slide is, that's the conclusion. I also want to say that, on this issue of, what we've coined greedflation, we had another rare moment of unanimous support both at committee and in the House of Commons. So I'm a member of the Agriculture Committee, and I introduced a motion to study grocery chain profits, because we know 80% of the market is dominated by three companies, Loblaws, Metro, and Empire. And they have a pretty sorry history. I mean, I don't know if many of you remember the bread price fixing scheme that implicated Loblaws. We also know that many of our processors and producers have had to deal with hidden fees when they're trying to get their products sold in grocery stores. So if they don't deliver enough product, or if they deliver too little, all kinds of hidden fees and very questionable business practices. So I introduced a motion at the Agriculture Committee to really start investigating this issue, the correlation between high profits and high food prices. And I'm pleased to say that that motion was unanimously adopted at committee. So Conservatives, Liberals, the Bloc Québécois agreed with me, and we had a unanimous vote. That investigation, I think, is going to probably start within the next 4 weeks. And as witnesses, I am going to be calling upon the CEOs of those 3 chains to appear before our committee to answer for their business practices, because I think we as a country really need to start tackling this issue. We've also had an announcement from the Competition Bureau of Canada. They are going to be doing their own study into this issue. But honestly, the Competition Bureau of Canada, I think, lacks resources, it lacks a mandate, and it lacks the strong investigative powers that I think it needs to fully address the concerns that many Canadians have. So I hope one of the results of this study will be that to look at the mandate of the Competition Bureau of Canada and as to whether we can recommend that it gets more powers. I also brought a motion forward in the House of Commons to try and back that study up. And after a day of debate, I'm pleased to say that the entire House of Commons also voted in support of that. So that was really nice to see, and I think it shows that no matter what part of the political spectrum you find yourself on, Canadians from coast to coast to coast are bringing the same concerns, the same issues, and same problems to their members of Parliament. And I think it forced Liberals and Conservatives to stop ignoring the issue, because they have been very reluctant to address the issue of corporate greed and how so many companies are not paying their fair share. Canadians for Tax Fairness found out that in last year alone, Canada's top companies got away with paying $31 billion less in tax than they should have under the current rules. So these are the kinds of things that they do. They find loopholes in the system, they find ways to hide their wealth offshore, and what that does is it provides a huge gap in the revenue that we generate as a country. What does that mean? The burden falls on the rest of us to make up the gap. So I'm saying, like, let's put an end to that. Let's stand up and say no more to this. Let's investigate the issue. And I think the political pressure and the public pressure has now reached a point where no matter what part of the political spectrum you occupy, it is now impossible to ignore anymore. So I'm very much looking forward to that study commencing in the next 4 weeks. I think that's about it for my presentation. This is the part where I open up to the floor for comments and questions. So who's going to be brave and raise their hand? Joyce.